Welcome back to the Deep Dive. Today, we're really tearing up the traditional economic map. We're looking at a blueprint, maybe a future blueprint, where economic power isn't all stuck in capital cities.
Right.
Instead, it's rooted, in the soil, right there in local community. And we're not talking small tweaks here.
No, not at all.
This is a full-scale redesign. We're diving deep into Prout's, that's Progressive Utilization Theory, and its concept of block-level planning. Think of it as this progressive, really futuristic vision for real grassroots economic power.
Built from the bottom up.
Exactly. Designed to create prosperity that actually sustains itself.
And that focus, that emphasis on the grassroots, it's so vital because right away we're tackling the fundamental, the systemic flaw that Prout points out in almost all national planning centralization.
The old top-down model.
Precisely. History just shows us again and again, top-down centralized planning, it basically fails. Why? Because the actual socio-economic factors, the productive what Prout calls the potentialities, they just vary so wildly from one place to the next.
Yeah, you can't just paint everything with the same brush.
Trying to run a single monolithic economic policy across a huge, diverse country, it's an exercise in futility, really.
I hear people mention this one-size-fits-all problem a lot in governance. But can you give us a really concrete, maybe even jarring example from the sources? Where does this kind of thinking become not just inefficient, but actively damaging?
Oh, definitely. We can look at a specific, powerful example right from the source material about Bihar in India.
Okay.
So just consider the Northeast districts versus the Southeast districts of that state, same central planning authority, right?
Right.
But their economic realities, polar opposites. The Northeast has this chronic problem of surplus labor, too many people, not enough jobs.
Leads to migration, poverty.
Exactly. Then you look at the Southeast, and they struggle with a deficit of labor. They actually can't fully use their local resources because they don't have the workforce they need.
Wait, hang on. So within the same state, you got simultaneously too many workers and too few workers, just depending on where you are.
Precisely that.
Yeah.
So imagine a central planning commission dictating the same economic plan, maybe mandating certain factory types or specific farm subsidies for both of those completely different situations.
Yeah, that sounds counterintuitive.
Well, the sources, they explicitly call this attempt foolishness, and you can see why. Centralized experiments have tried to solve these localized, diverging problems by just generalizing, but they fail. They inevitably fail because they ignore the unique potential, the actual existing problems, and the specific needs of each local area.
It's like treating symptoms with completely the wrong medicine.
Exactly. So our mission for this deep dive is to really understand the mechanics of the solution Prout offers.
How does it work?
We want to see how transferring real economic control down to this hyper-local unit, the block, can actually lead to practical, resilient, customized growth.
Right.
And this focus, making the block the primary engine, customizing the plan based on the local soil, the water, the labor available, that's what makes Prout's decentralization model, unique and honestly really compelling.
Okay, right. Let's unpack this then. Before we get into the four pillars and the planning details, we really need to define this foundational unit. The block. For a lot of our listeners, I imagine this is probably an unfamiliar term, especially in an economic context. What exactly is a block?
Yeah, good question. The block in Prout's theory, it's rooted in the administrative structure you find in many large developing nations. Specifically, it references the Indian system.
Okay.
It's the official community development block, or CD block. Now, it's not just one village, and it's not the whole district either. It's that crucial layer in between.
Middle ground.
Exactly. Geographically, think of it as a cluster of villages. And sometimes it includes a few smaller local towns as well.
So it's like a mini socio-economic ecosystem.
Yeah.
What's its job in traditional government? And why pick that specific level for economic empowerment?
Well, traditionally, it serves as this vital bridge. It connects the often quite distant district administration with the very local village institutions, the panchayats.
Okay.
Administratively, the block is key for managing rural development. It's the unit that actually implements programs, think agriculture schemes, local health clinics, education infrastructure, building local roads. It's supposed to make sure the plans made way up high actually reach the people who need them.
So it's kind of the closest point for practical last-mile delivery. But often, isn't it just a bureaucracy just carrying out someone else's plan?
That's often the case, yes. But the structure itself, it's already there. It's set up to facilitate effective decentralized planning, even if it's not always used that way.
Oh, okay.
Every block has a block development officer, a BDO. Their job is coordinating schemes and resources. So this existing structure, it allows for local oversight, micro-level monitoring. It's designed, in theory, to strengthen local governance, get people involved.
Right.
It bridges that critical administrative gap between remote villages and the, often overwhelmed district headquarters. Fundamentally, it's the most functionally dense unit where administration and local needs already meet.
And what Prout does, which feels so forward-thinking, is take this existing structure, this link, and say, okay, you're not just delivering stuff anymore.
Exactly.
You are now the primary self-governing engine of economic strength. The vision is making each block economically sound, self-sufficient, self-reliant. Why is that local self-sufficiency the ultimate goal here?
The logic is, well, it's elegantly simple, but also quite revolutionary. A country is only ever as strong as its parts, right?
Makes sense.
So, if every single block, each one covering a group of villages and towns, if everyone achieves real customized economic strength, then the whole country, or the federation, it automatically becomes economically strong, developed in the real sense.
Not just on paper.
Not just on paper. You don't build strength by hoarding wealth at the top. True national resilience comes from spreading deep foundational economic stability at every single local level. That's how you escape that top-heavy economic fragility we see so often.
Right. So this is where we shift from geography to, well, the mechanics.
Yeah.
The how-to. Prout says this decentralized planning has to be guided by four non-negotiable factors, foundational pillars.
That's right.
And these factors seem to completely redefine what economic success even looks like, moving away from just abstract financial numbers. Let's start with one that hits home for farmers, cost of production.
Yeah, this first pillar, it's really designed to professionalize agriculture, to pull farming communities out of that cycle of perpetual debt.
How does it do that?
The traditional problem is basically a structural accounting failure. Farmers, especially smallholders relying on family labor, they often fail to systematically figure out their true per-unit cost of production.
What do they miss?
They don't account for the value of their family's time, the wear and tear on their tools depreciation, the hidden costs of things like irrigation or interest on any capital they've borrowed.
So if they're only calculating prices based on obvious inputs, like seeds and fertilizer, they're essentially undervaluing their own work. They're subsidizing the national food supply with unpaid labor.
Precisely. They end up constantly operating at a loss or maybe just scraping by with survival prices.
Yeah.
And that ensures they stay poor, even though they're producing the most essential thing we need, food.
So what's the Prout solution? It sounds transformative.
It is. The solution is agriculture must be completely reorganized. It needs to be established on the same systematic basis as any organized industry. And the key mechanism for this is the cooperative system.
Treat farming like manufacturing. Okay, what does that mean in practice? How does a cooperative calculate the cost of, say, Aunt Mary's time in the fields?
It means implementing standardized, transparent accounting. Within a cooperative model, the labor of all members, including family, is formally recognized, it's quantified, just like a factory records hourly wages.
Ah, I see.
This systematic cost determination ensures farmers get proper remunerative prices for what they produce. It aims to end their poverty almost immediately and bring genuine financial stability to the whole agricultural sector. It makes farming a respected, viable profession again.
And this professional approach, this applies across the board in the block, right? The core principle seems really strict. Cost of production must be systematically worked out, kept as low as possible through efficiency.
Right, maximize efficiency.
But crucially, it must never exceed the market value of the commodity. Every single production unit has to be economically viable on its own terms within that block's ecosystem.
Exactly. And that necessity for efficiency, it leads us straight into the second pillar, productivity. The mandate here is that the block's economy must be perpetually organized, so it has the innate power, the self-sustaining ability to produce more and more year after year.
More goods, more services.
Yes. And this is tied directly to a core financial idea. Prout calls the principle of rolling money.
Rolling money. I
Yeah.
like the sound of that. It sounds like the opposite of hoarding.
It is exactly that. Money has to be actively invested. It needs to be kept constantly rolling through the system into production, into circulation. It shouldn't be hoarded or just stagnate as inactive capital.
So the goal isn't just private wealth piling up somewhere.
No, the goal is the continual increase of the collective wealth of the society, not the stagnant private accumulation by a few. The implementation is very concrete, very locally driven. You aim for maximum production based on collective needs. You have to ensure full employment for everyone locally, nobody sitting idle if there's work needed.
Right.
And you develop products wherever the raw materials are actually available within the block.
And there's a crucial rule here for productivity. Underutilization of any production unit is not allowed if you got the machines, the people, the materials you need to be producing something useful.
That's the engine running at full tilt, but controlled, efficient tilt. And when production is guided by genuine local needs and the area's potential, what the sources call the law of productivity, it becomes, well, benign. It's self-reinforcing.
How so?
Maximum production, when it's tied to local needs, it naturally creates this congenial environment for more immediate local investment. That stimulates more industrialization, which creates more jobs, which then increases local purchasing capacity.
Core index killer.
Exactly, leading to an increase in collective wealth in what Prout calls an ever-progressive manner. It's like the ideal upward economic spiral powered from the ground up.
Okay, but if we're constantly maximizing production, how do we make sure the local market can actually absorb all this output? How do we avoid gluts or prices crashing? Which, as you said, brings us to pillar 3, the one that really challenges standard capitalist thinking. Purchasing capacity.
Yes, this is where Prout makes a radical break. It completely rejects per capita income, PCI, as the standard way to measure economic health. Prout calls PCI deceptive and defective.
Why deceptive? We hear that term all the time.
Because it's just a statistical average, and averages hide inequality. Think about it. Imagine a block with, say, 1,000 people.
Okay.
If 990 of them earn almost nothing, but 10 oligarchs are making billions from, I don't know, resource extraction or some centralized monopoly.
The average income, the PCI, might look fantastic on a national report.
Exactly. It looks great on the spreadsheet, but 99% of the actual people are suffering. They can't afford basic things. The local shops are probably struggling because no one can buy anything. Prout insists the genuine measure of people's economic progress is their increasing purchasing capacity.
Can most people easily afford the minimum necessities? And can they afford an improving standard of living over time? That's the real question.
It is the real index of success.
So how does the Block Planning Board systematically increase this purchasing capacity? It can't just be wishful thinking. There must be mechanisms.
There are 4 key mechanisms outlined, and they work together. First, ensure the easy availability of minimum requirements: food, clothing, shelter, healthcare, education, through local production. Make it accessible.
Okay, availability first.
Second, stable prices are mandatory. You have to prevent inflation from just eating away people's real wealth.
Price stability. Got it.
Third, there have to be progressive, regular increases in wages and salaries, legally mandated, keeping pace with productivity gains.
So wages rise as the block produces more.
Yes. And fourth, the overall increasing collective wealth of the block itself feeds back into the system, creating more demand and opportunity.
The futuristic vision here is quite powerful. Prout suggests that in this kind of economy, purchasing capacity will just keep going up, ever increasing, because it's directly tied to the success of that local productive engine.
Absolutely. And the definition of minimum requirements isn't static. It must always be increased according to time, place, and person. As the block develops, what counts as a basic minimum has to expand.
So it connects social justice directly to economic development.
Precisely. The higher the block's overall purchasing power, the higher the actual standard of living for everyone in that unit.
Okay, that brings us to the 4th and final pillar, collective necessity. This sounds like it's about ensuring this decentralized system has foresight, sustainability. It's not just about today.
Exactly right. Planners can't just react to today's shopping list, as it were. They have to meticulously consider the existing collective needs and the future requirements of their block. Then they chalk out development programs accordingly. Planning without looking ahead leads to, well, disaster, infrastructural bottlenecks.
And the source material gives a specific example of this kind of neglect, right? Failing to plan for the future.
It does. It points to the history of industrialization in parts of India, particularly Bengal and Bihar. Lots of industries were set up relatively quickly, often decentralized, which was good for jobs locally.
Sounds okay so far.
But the production of power electricity lagged way behind. There was a lack of proper planning for future energy needs alongside industrial growth. So you ended up with factories ready to run, but no reliable, consistent power source to actually run them.
A classic bottleneck. Shows what happens if you only focus on the immediate need, like jobs, without planning for the essential infrastructure the modern age requires.
Precisely. So the prioritization has to be clear. Number one priority is always producing the minimum requirements for all citizens. But the planning can't stop there. It also has to look beyond just basic sustenance.
How so?
It must also meet the requirements of, say, meritorious people, ensuring opportunities for talent and those with special needs. It's about ensuring the requirements of the age are met.
So you're not just building a static subsistence society.
Not at all. You're building a modern, advancing society, one that's equipped with the necessary intellectual, technological, and infrastructural foundations for continuous improvement. It's dynamic.
Okay, this decentralized system, it sounds fantastic in theory, but it really needs a highly systematic, almost scientific approach to actually work, doesn't it? It can't just rely on old, arbitrary political lines on a map.
That's absolutely the first critical step, reorganizing the block through scientific demarcation. You're right, most current administrative blocks, globally and definitely in the context Prout was discussing, they're marked out based on political convenience or history where a voting district ends, maybe where some old ruler's territory used to be.
Yeah.
Prout explicitly rejects those kinds of divisions, calls them economically irrational.
So the economy should define the boundary, not the politician. What are the key factors, then, for a scientifically demarcated block? What makes a boundary scientific?
The reorganization has to be based on permanent physical factors, things that genuinely affect the economy and the people living there. This includes physical features like river valleys, watersheds, distinct climatic conditions, topography, the specific type of soil, even the existing flora and fauna.
The natural realities.
Yes, these are the elements that really dictate productive potential and how you manage resources effectively.
That makes total sense for, say, agricultural planning or water management. But the sources also mention socio-economic requirements, local problems, and something that sounds quite abstract, the physico-psychic aspirations of the people. How does a planning board measure a community's physico-psychic aspiration and, bake that into a plan for a factory or flood control?
Ah, yes. This is where Prout introduces that really nuanced humanistic element. Physico-psychic aspirations. It sounds complex, but it basically refers to the collective intangible desires and the cultural direction of that community.
Like their shared identity.
Exactly. Their shared sense of identity, what they value as a community, their educational goals, their desire for cultural development that goes beyond just material stuff. A scientifically sound block isn't just a pool of resources, it's a living community.
Okay, so if, for example, a community in a mountainous area has a really strong historical tradition of, say, weaving, the plan should aspire to elevate that craft, maybe into a modern industry, rather than just forcing them to, try and build a rice paddy where it won't grow.
Precisely. The planning board needs mechanisms, strong local representation, constant feedback loops to assess and actively promote the dominant sociocultural direction of the people living there. This makes sure the economic plan isn't just effective on paper, but it's also culturally resonant and has the buy-in of the population.
Right.
So scientifically, systematically demarcated blocks based on both natural resources and this collective human will. That's the essential starting point for efficient decentralized planning.
Okay, once you have these scientifically valid blocks, how does the planning actually begin? You mentioned it flows from the bottom up. Prout calls this the ascending order of planning.
Yes. Block-level planning is designated as the absolute foundation, the basic level. And Prout argues it should ideally be backed by constitutional provision.
Well, written into the Constitution.
To guarantee its permanence and authority, yes. Every single block needs its own independent block-level planning board. This board should be made up of local experts, community leaders, elected officials, people who really know the area. Their job is to prepare and implement the unique local development programs.
And the hierarchy. How does this local plan connect to the bigger picture, the national reality?
So above the block board, you have a district board, then maybe a regional board, and so on, right up to the top level. And this is crucial, the planning always moves in an ascending order.
Bottom up.
Bottom up. The national plan isn't dictated from above. It's built by aggregating, coordinating, and harmonizing all the successful, unique plans coming up from the blocks below. This approach ensures maximum relevance, maximum responsiveness. It corrects those top-down failures we talked about right at the start.
Now, we definitely need to talk about cooperation,
Right.
because a block can't just be an island, right? There's a difference between managing your own house and working with the neighbors on shared issues.
Absolutely. That brings us to the important distinction between intra-block and inter-block planning.
Okay.
Intra-block planning is that specific, customized plan for the all-round growth of one single block. It focuses on the hyper-local stuff, your local schools, your village water systems, the roads within the block, and it always has to adjust to fit within the overall aggregated plan of the next higher socio-economic unit.
Right. Makes sense. So what's inter-block planning? This sounds like it's for bigger regional things.
It's exactly the mechanism for regional strength and coordination. Inter-block planning tackles those problems, or ventures, that naturally cross block boundaries, things that require mutual coordination, cooperation between adjoining blocks.
Like what? Give us some examples.
Think about managing flood control along a river that runs through several blocks, or large river valley projects for irrigation or power. Building major communication systems like regional transport networks, establishing higher educational institutions like a university that serve multiple blocks, setting up key industries that need a larger resource base or market than one block can provide, creating organized market systems for goods from several blocks, and, critically, large-scale power generation projects.
So really big infrastructure.
Yes. Intra-block planning is defined as an economic venture in these selected larger-scale fields. It's specifically designed to organize and harmonize development across a cluster of adjoining blocks through coordinated effort. It ensures that striving for self-sufficiency doesn't lead to, counterproductive isolation or duplication of effort.
Okay, one last thing on implementation. Speed. The planning timelines mentioned seem incredibly fast, especially compared to the usual 5-year, 10-year plans we see from centralized governments.
They're designed for agility, for responsiveness. The plans are structured into short-term and long-term segments, but they have to complement each other. The maximum time limit for any short-term planning cycle is very focused. Just 6 months.
6 months?
Yeah.
That seems really quick to plan and implement anything significant.
It does, but remember the scale we're talking about. A block-level planning board is dealing with a manageable area, a population they know intimately. They aren't trying to predict outcomes for hundreds of millions spread across vast, diverse territories.
Ah, okay. The small scale allows for speed.
Exactly. It lets them identify bottlenecks quickly, see what's working and what isn't, and correct course rapidly. For the long-term plans, the maximum time frame is 3 years. These faster cycles prevent stagnation. They ensure constant, immediate feedback between what's being produced and what the community actually needs and can consume.
So the immediate practical goals that have to be hit within those short cycles, those are the real test of whether the block is succeeding. What are those 4 key immediate goals, again, at every level?
They really define success in this Proutistic system. Number 1, guarantee the minimum requirements for all local people: food, shelter, clothing, healthcare, education. Basic security.
Okay.
Number 2, eliminate unemployment entirely within the block. Full local employment.
Ambitious.
Very. Number 3, continuously increase the purchasing capacity of the people.
Real well.
Real wealth. And number 4, make the socio-economic unit, the block, self-sufficient in as many core areas as practically possible. That's the constant driving mandate. Achieve those 4 things continuously.
So what does all this micromanagement, this high-speed, localized planning actually mean for the average person living in that block? The benefits sound like they could be rapid, very targeted, and really foundational, maybe solving problems that global development efforts have struggled with for decades.
The benefits really do flow directly from that small, manageable scale. Because the area is contained, local planners can understand all the problems thoroughly. Not just looking at statistics, but understanding the context, the human element.
They live there.
Exactly. Local leadership solves problems based on genuinely local priorities. That makes the planning immediately more practical, more effective from day one. You're likely to see quick, positive results.
Which builds confidence in the system.
It does. Plus, you can actively mobilize local sociocultural bodies like NGOs, schools, community groups, even religious institutions to help marshal both human and material resources. This fosters real community ownership and investment in the plan's success.
And the source material really emphasizes this as the ultimate solution for what might be the most persistent global challenge: unemployment.
Absolutely. Prout argues very strongly that the only way to truly solve unemployment, to bring about permanent full employment everywhere, is by developing block-level industries.
Why block level specifically?
Because when industry is localized, when it's tailored to local resources and local needs, it provides immediate economic benefits right there. It creates social security because people have work and income. It opens up opportunities for all-round advancement because basic needs are being met through local production and local money circulating locally.
This localized focus,
Yeah.
does it even help with complex issues like the floating population, transient workers moving around looking for temporary jobs?
Yes, that problem is often made worse by central neglect, by the lack of stable opportunities back home. Under this block system, even the issue of a floating population has to be tackled right there at the block level.
Ow.
The block board has a responsibility. They need to implement mechanisms to either provide these individuals with permanent settlement and stable employment within the block, or they need to coordinate their safe, organized return to their place of origin, ensuring there's support waiting for them there. They can't just be left to drift between places, falling into poverty cycles. The responsibility is localized, which forces a more stable, humane solution.
Okay, so to really hammer home the core idea here that centralized, one-size-fits-all planning just doesn't work, let's dive back into that detailed comparison from the sources. The one showing how basic geology and climate dictate completely different economic paths. Let's look again at the Punjab versus the Kaveri valleys. Will planning for these two regions ever be the same?
Absolutely not. And we can break down exactly why using 3 key differences highlighted in the material. These really prove why you need that block-level customization. Reason number 1, the source of their water. This dictates everything for energy and agriculture.
Okay, let's hear the contrast. Water sources.
Right. In the Punjab, you have major rivers like the Jhelum, Chenab, Ravi, Beas, Sutlej. They all originate in the Himalayas. Meaning they are ice-fed, glaciers melt. This provides a constant, perennial, year-round supply of water, pretty much regardless of seasonal monsoon variations. This basic geological fact makes massive hydroelectric projects like the Bakra Nangal Dam mentioned totally viable. They can generate reliable, constant power.
Okay, constant flow in the Punjab. Now contrast that with the Kaveri Valley down south.
The Kaveri Valley rivers like the Tungabhadra and the Kaveri itself, they originate in the Ghats, the mountain ranges there. They depend almost entirely on seasonal rainfall.
So, monsoon dependent.
Yes. While the region might get rain during 2 different monsoon seasons, the rivers are fundamentally not perennial. Their flow varies hugely through the year. So if a central planner tried to impose the same reliance on large-scale hydro projects here as in the Punjab,
Disaster.
it would lead to massive uncertainty, unreliable power generation because the water supply just isn't constant. Local block planners in the Kaveri region have to prioritize different energy sources, maybe solar, wind, small-scale hydro, perhaps thermal, because their geology demands it.
Makes perfect sense. Okay, reason 2 for different planning needs. Climate. This obviously impacts farming cycles.
Hugely. The Kaveri Valley is closer to the equator. It has an extreme climate, but it's not really dependent on external winds from the north. This leads to very specific crop cycles suited to that tropical heat and humidity.
And the Punjab.
Punjab also has an extreme climate, hot summers, cold winters, but its weather is heavily influenced by completely different wind patterns. Winds coming from the northwest and monsoon winds from the east.
So the whole agricultural calendar is different.
Completely different. The choice of crops, the balance between Kharif and Rabi season crops, the specific irrigation techniques needed, they're fundamentally different. A block in the Punjab might naturally focus on wheat or other robust grains that handle its climate. A block down in the Kaveri region might specialize in rice, maybe spices, or other cash crops that thrive in those tropical conditions. Central planning that ignores these climate realities, it just destroys local agriculture. It forces farmers to grow things that won't thrive.
Right. And the third big foundational reason why planning must differ.
Yeah.
The soil itself, the topography. This affects everything from building roads to what you can actually grow.
Exactly. The Punjab is mostly flat plain land. That allows for more uniformity in things like mechanized farming, and it makes building infrastructure like roads and railways relatively straightforward.
Easier to work with.
Generally, yes. The Kaveri Valley, though, it's much more varied, a mosaic. The central part is the Deccan Plateau. That's characterized by wavy terrain and laterite soil.
That's laterite soil-like.
It's a hard, often reddish, iron-rich soil. It's not typically very fertile for deep cultivation of many common crops. Only a small strip near the coast in that region has the rich alluvial soil, the kind deposited by rivers that makes places like the Coromandel and Malabar coasts historically famous as granaries.
So the ground itself dictates what industries make sense.
Absolutely. Take that Deccan Plateau with its laterite soil. It can sustain hardy trees, like the Palmyra palm, quite well, but it would really struggle to grow delicate, water-hungry trees like coconut palms.
Whereas the coastal areas.
The coastal alluvial areas, they can grow both Palmyra and coconut trees easily. So imagine a centralized government maybe unaware of or ignoring these crucial soil differences, trying to mandate a huge, uniform coconut processing industry across the entire region.
It would fail miserably in the plateau areas.
Yeah.
A total waste of resources.
Catastrophically. A proper planning approach must scientifically account for all these relevant factors, the geology, the climate, the soil types, the human potential, before a single development scheme gets the green light. This detailed contrast, Punjab versus Kaveri, it just proves beyond doubt the absolute necessity of customized, block-level planning. One size truly fits none.
So let's try and wrap this up. Prout's block-level planning, it fundamentally takes a relevant unit, the block, defined scientifically, not politically, and turns it into this self-sufficient, agile economic engine.
That's the core idea.
It mandates scientific demarcation. It ruthlessly maximizes productivity using that rolling money principle. It ensures everything is economically viable, treating farming like a proper industry. And, maybe most importantly, it completely redefines success. It's not about abstract GDP or PCI figures.
Which hides so much.
It's about maximizing real purchasing capacity for everyone. The true measure of wealth. It really feels like a blueprint for durable, localized prosperity.
It does. And if decentralization, when it's executed with this level of scientific rigor, this focus on human needs and potential, if it can provide this kind of economic stability, guarantee basic needs through empowered local control, then we really have to ask ourselves a pretty fundamental question.
Which is?
How quickly could this kind of systematic, bottom-up approach reorganize other administrative divisions around the world, places that are currently just crippled by the failures of arbitrary, politically driven boundaries that make no economic sense?
Yeah.
It raises this important question about whether we should just accept existing political borders as permanent barriers to real, sustainable, local economic development. Or perhaps do we have something like a moral imperative to restructure governance based on rational resource management and, collective human aspiration, where people actually live and work together naturally?
That is a truly powerful thought to mull over. Should our economic structures follow natural and human realities or be constrained by historical lines on a map? We definitely encourage you, the listener, to reflect on the huge difference between a statistic like per capita income, which can hide so much inequality, and the real, tangible economic power that comes from guaranteed increasing purchasing capacity for everyone in a community. Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive into what could be the future of decentralized economies.